Welcome. It's a good morning. We're getting lots of blessings from the sky, at least where I'm at. There's been plenty of rain, and I'm going to be getting on a plane in a little bit. So I'm hoping it just lets up so I can take off, and then it can keep raining because we could use rain, right? I'm all in for that. We're going to take a couple minutes for announcements. Anything kind of also that might be exciting. So just either jump in or raise your hand in terms of announcement. I know in several different faith traditions, this is a holy time and people are busy doing other things. So I'm going to hold back just a little bit on announcements myself. We all have plenty of things going on. I am excited. I wanted to share with you one of our newer collaboratives that's on the environment. It just, I think, a prime example of what collaboratives can do if they aren't a collaborative. You know, like when you become one, some other synergy, an exponential factor, starts to move, right? And so there's this federal grant opportunity that can only be used by nonprofits that the city discovered. So I'm giving those connections, right? And took it to the collaborative and said, what if? But the what if also came with a fairly short deadline. But this was like a month or so ago. Now the deadline is less than 2 weeks. But on Monday, so I'm just celebrating that a grant is going to be written. We have no idea what will happen, right? But the food bank, as a 501c3, stepped up and said, we'll write the grant. We'll be the backbone 501c3, right? And the grant is being written around resiliency hubs. Those in I think a great definition are like community centers to the 10th degree. Things that we need in all of our neighborhoods, right? Where people can get what they need, but like in emergencies also know that they can go to. And there are about 4 other partners. One place in town that's already, the Southwest Workers Union, is already working on a resiliency hub. And about 3 other partners. We haven't talked to all of them yet, so I don't want to give them all out there, but really kind of looking at maybe partnering with 1 or 2 spaces where Bridges to Care has already formed a cohort. And I already know 2 congregations here in the city who want to do this. And so it's not about building a new facility, although the city is building 4 resiliency hubs. But this idea is to take what we already have and strengthen those in neighborhoods, just like we've been doing with Bridges to Care and mental health, but to think about that even more holistically. And so this grant that's being written is being written as a pilot with 1 or 2 congregations in mind. And then perhaps if that goes well, the city has something like 5 or 8 to 10 million coming in for the next 5 years for sustainability and the environment. And so maybe some of those funds will then be there to help replicate this pilot across our entire geography. Okay, so is anybody, what did you call it? On the edge or at the curve or the head of the curve or whatever it is anybody as excited about this possibility as I am? So everybody raise your hand if you are. Because I think that's exactly the work that we're doing metaphorically at the intersection, but also physically and spiritually, holistically, communally at the intersections of life between faith, community, and civic work. I think it could be, and I think it's going to be amazing. And if that grant doesn't happen, we'll probably be looking other directions. So the idea won't just die. So look at that. I did those 5 minutes. Does anybody else have an announcement in my excitement?
Yes, I have an announcement. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Yes, I would like to announce as a Cultural Lingua will have a service day, which will be May 6th. So it will be a cleaning garden. Maybe it could be regarding to the walls that to the grants from the city. This cleaning or this service day comes within our community of welcome program and as a commitment from us to the climate change initiative that started by the city. So as you may know, cleaning the gardens makes the gardens more healthy, and then so less pesticide that will be used. And then in this case, we'll have more efficiency for the green areas or green canopies, which could reduce the CO2 impact. So I would like you guys to save the date. It's May 5th at Rudder Middle School. It will be from 9 to 12. Anyone would like to join us, you are welcome. We don't have the flyer ready yet, but as soon as we have it ready, we will send it to you in the email guide. Thank you.
Thank you, Hassan. Appreciate that.
Announcement.
There's an announcement from Emma.
Yes, NAMI Bridges to Care. Tonight we'll be having a workshop. It's called Healthy Boundaries from 6 to 7:30. It says, come and learn about the importance of setting healthy boundaries. Donna Costa will be the presenter. It's going to be fabulous. We will put that in the chat. So if you're not busy this evening, then it's by Zoom. So thank you for the opportunity to share.
Of course, it's going to be fabulous. Donna is fabulous.
Got
And
it.
so,
Yes.
yeah. So this morning, our briefing is going to be on voting. And we have talked before and kind of continue to talk about tipping points and what does it take to get to like a mass tipping point in any effort. Voting is another way of saying tipping point.
Voting.
That's how we civically engage, one way that helps to move us forward. Sometimes we might think backwards depending on how it goes, but voting, as we all know, is important to our civic and public service. So I've got on the screen here the upcoming dates and where you can find things at the city. It doesn't take much to Google, but the early voting is April 24th through May 2nd. Many of you probably already know that, but just in case you don't, and the general election is May 6th. So right there in the middle of Fiesta is early voting. Several of you among us have encouraged and asked, could the League of Women's Voters come and talk to us about what they do, but more importantly, the resources that they provide, nonpartisan resources to our community. So Alene is with us. Alene is with us this morning from the League of Women's Voters. I'll get it out here. League of Women Voters. Woo! It's not that hard. It's just that early, I guess, and not enough coffee. So Alene, I'm so glad that you came and visited us this morning. And I have some dear friends who are just avid with the League, and I have to admit, I haven't sat down with them and heard their full conversation about it. Sorry, Jan, but I'm going to get that briefing today. So Alene, it's all yours. I do have the share screen open. If you want to use that, you don't have to, but just so you know it's available.
All right,
so
well, let me try it.
Thank you.
I may have to manipulate this just a little bit to get where I want.
You didn't have to work worked too hard at it. Look at you.
I did it. It doesn't always work on this computer. Thank you, Ann. I'm really excited to be here. We are working very hard to make sure that voters in the Bexar County and in the city of San Antonio know about this May election. You might be surprised at how many people we have talked with that, you know, we say, are you ready to vote in May? And they said, what? There's an election. So they don't even know that there's an election coming up. So it really is an important thing to get out there and to make sure that there's an awareness of what of the election. So I am Vice President of Community Outreach. So that's the part of the arm of the League of Women Voters of the San Antonio area that I lead, that I work with. And you may be aware of the League. You may not be aware that it's over a century old. There's been over 100 years of empowering voters and defending democracy. And it was a response. The foundation of the League of Women Voters was a response to women getting the right to vote. So we knew that we knew that they had a pool of voters that were going to be brand new to the voting process, and so they needed information. And so the League was formed to provide these new voters, that time women, the information that they needed to be able to vote. And that's been a cornerstone of the League ever since. And that's really what community outreach is about. Probably our strength is in our nonpartisanship. We are very protective of our nonpartisanship position. We don't support or oppose any candidate. All of our materials are as neutral as we can make them. We just want information out there so that people have the information that they need and they will go out and vote. Wanted to share with you the vision is that with every person has the desire, right, knowledge, and confidence to participate in the electoral process. And then I've underlined that part of our mission that community outreach really addresses, and that's encouraging informed and active participation of citizens in government. You'll notice a couple of other arms of the League: increasing understanding of major policy issues, influencing public policy through education and advocacy. Those are also areas of our interest of the League. That's not what community outreach does, though. We are really just talking about informing and helping citizens exercise their right to vote and having that information that they need. So we do that by connecting with voters. And this is about that voter education that the League was first established for. We want to make sure that voters have the information about voter registration, such as today is the last day you can register to vote for the May election. So if they're not registered by today, they will not be eligible to vote in the election on May 6th. We want them to know about the ballots, the candidates, the issues, that the election is actually coming up. One of the questions that I've had in the past year that I found just very telling, I guess, is that somebody asked me, well, how do we know when there is an election? And I really had to think about that, because if you're not someone who pays attention to that to begin with, it may be very hard to find that out. So I really had to think about what my answer would be. And finally, my answer was, well, every May and November, pretty much in Texas, there's an election of some sort. So there are a few others sprinkled in there, but every May and November. We want them to know when and where to vote. And of course, we want to encourage them to actually take that action and go and cast their ballot. So we do have get out the vote efforts as well. So to be ready to vote, we want them to register. We want them to have information, get informed, have information about the candidates, what's on their ballot. We want them to actually make a plan to vote, which is, when am I voting? Am I voting by mail? Am I voting early? Am I voting on election day? So they need to know what those options are. And then we actually want them to go and actually cast their ballot. So all of our efforts in community outreach are toward these four things. registering to vote, having the information available so that they can go vote with confidence, have information about when to vote, and then actually doing it. So when we engage with voters, one of the ways that which we do that, we distribute educational materials. So these are some of the things that we have available. There are a few others. I just wanted to highlight these. The ones on the right, we have a 10-page document on frequently asked questions. It is sorted by topic, so you don't have to read the whole thing to find out what you want. But it is available on our website in both English and Spanish. And we have a Texas Voters Bill of Rights, again, both in English and Spanish, which just list some things for voters to consider about this important right of citizenship and the ability to go and cast that ballot for all the different things that we vote for. We also have very specific election materials, and this this Vote Local document that you see here is a bookmark that we have available this election cycle. Again, it's educational in terms of there is an election. Here are the dates that you need to know about. It's small enough to hang on your refrigerator so that you can remember. It gives the voters a reason to vote in this particular election because we're voting for local officials who make decisions regarding our community. On the back of this bookmark, it'll have our resources to help them get more informed about that ballot and about the candidates and about the issues that are prevalent in the current election. And we want to highlight the upcoming election, and we do that in a variety of ways. This year, for the first time, we created these posters. Again, you see it looks very much like this one on the far right. Looks very much like the bookmark. Again, we wanted to make that connection. It has the election specific information and then the resources at the bottom. We have it in Spanish and English. So if you see this around town at a public library, we'd love for you to take a picture of it and tweet it out and tag the league so that we know that people are seeing these. This was our first try at this particular way of communicating. We are an all-volunteer organization, and so we can't be in a lot of places. So we wanted to try to expand that reach with these posters. We also want to expand the reach to communities that don't have digital access. And so some organizations would tell us, well, we'll take an electronic copy, and that's fine. We can share that. And we would love for that to be included in newsletters and things like that. But we also want to address those communities that don't have that digital access, or maybe are not in tune with a community newsletter. And so this was an attempt to do that. We're going to be finding out how our people that received the posters liked it, whether they thought it was productive, and determine whether or not that's something we continue for future elections. You also may be familiar with our Voters Guide. These are actually being delivered this week to the public libraries and other community organizations. This is the printed copy of our what's on the ballot and the candidates and how they've responded to questions that we've asked them. A lot of conversation in the formation of those questions to make them as unbiased as possible. We don't want to have leading questions that indicate a particular answer is correct. We want them to respond in their to the question and give us as much information as they can about their position on that particular issue without leading them in either direction. So that's available. And then of course we have Vote 411. This is our online version of the Voters Guide. It is that's up and running right now. And it's more interactive and it's expanded. It has more information about the candidates in that it has more questions. Because of the printing costs, we only print some of the questions we ask, so it has more questions that they've responded to. It can also be very specific to your address, so the voter can put in their particular address and get a ballot specific to that residence. So they're not looking at the candidates in races that they don't have the opportunity to vote for. They only look at those races that are specific to their location. And so it's a very powerful tool, and it's one that is available every election cycle. It comes about a couple of weeks before early voting, but it is up and running now. It became live last week. So those are our specific current election things that we have. And again, the Vote 411 and the Voter's Guide comes out for every election. So we're a volunteer organization, and we distribute these whenever we have opportunities, the bookmarks, the frequently asked questions, the Voter Bill of Rights, whenever we have face-to-face interaction with people. But to broaden our access, we also ask other organizations to participate in expanding our reach. For example, the bookmarks have gone out, about 2,000 have gone out to the food bank. 3,800 went to Meals on Wheels. We sent them to the libraries as well. So we are trying to broaden our reach by getting other organizations to help us expand who and where these materials are distributed. So we do have some of these local bookmarks, Vote Local bookmarks, still available. We have about 2,000 still available. So I'm offering them to you. If you'll just let me know how many you could possibly share with your community. If you have an interest in this, you can just reach out to me, and we can get them to you in the next week. Or if you want to expand the voter registration in your communities, October 10th is the next voter registration deadline for the November election. So voter registration can happen up until then for that November election. And we would be glad to help you arrange a voter registration event for your community as well. So that's what I have to share with you today. Do y'all have any questions about anything? How can we help you and your communities encourage your communities to vote?
Kendra has her hand up.
Thank you, Anne. I'm not going to come on camera because I look amazing right now, but I don't want everybody to get jealous. So
I love that.
Good morning, everybody. I wanted to ask you, ma'am, we do a lot of community outreach for people that don't have vehicles and don't have media access on the East Side. And we go door to door actually and hand out flyers for our events. And we will be handing out flyers for like the Bexar County Reentry Center. That's one of our partners, their job there. I would be very interested in getting somewhere around 1,000 bookmarks to put on doors at Sutton Oaks and some other apartment complexes that we'll be focusing our efforts on next week. And then also voter registration. And I wanted to know, how do you feel about us making copies and getting some posters from you as well?
The frequently asked questions and Voter Bill of Rights, those are available to you online, and you can access those and make copies, as many copies of those as you want, and distribute those. There's also some other brochures on there, like Voting It's in Your Best Interest, Why Vote. So there's some other things on our website that you can access, and absolutely print as many of those as you would like and distribute those. I have a few posters, I think, left. If you'll just give me an email and tell me the number of bookmarks that you want and the location to deliver them to, and if you need a poster, we have very, very few posters left, but I can try to get you one. It is in English and in Spanish. It's on English on one side and Spanish on the back. So I just need an email from you and let me know where to take them, and we'll try to get them to you.
Okay, I will email you in just a little bit. And I think we could maybe make copies of the posters too and put them in a few community centers. But anyways, that's a conversation for us to have.
If you email me, I will email you the PDF of the poster.
Okay.
They actually print quite nicely on an 8x11. We've done that for our table signs. The posters we have are 13x19, but they print quite nicely on an 8x11 sheet of paper. Okay. So you could just print them that way too.
Okay, I will definitely.
I'll be glad to share that with you. Yes.
Yes, thank you so much, and thank you for everything you do.
Thank you.
I think you probably answered a lot of questions that people might have had, and so glad that those resources are available. Are there, I'm going to check chat real quick, but are there any other questions, comments? People want to raise your hand? Love to hear voices.
Yeah, Anne, I'd like to just add a little bit to what Alene presented. I'm fairly new to the league. I've only been volunteering for about a year, but I have to tell you, the one thing that impresses me so much about this organization, yeah, voter registration is important, but they are so passionately committed to empowering and informing voters. I mean, that's such a huge part of what we do. I spend as much time talking to people who are already registered as I do registering voters, and they're so excited to get a resource like vote411.org. I mean, their faces light up when I tell them about this, that everything that it offers. And one, I mean, the league is all over the county. I'm amazed at the many places where we go, but the one thing that I do most frequently is the naturalization ceremonies. We're both downtown at the federal courthouse and at the north location, and this is where it's up to 200 to 300 new citizens take the oath of citizenship. And it's really one of the most inspiring, moving things I've been a part of in a long time. And then we are right there to help them to register to vote as brand new citizens. And so, it's really just been an honor and a joy to be part of the league.
I really appreciate that, Jan. I was just thinking, maybe somebody can answer it. It's been so long since I took driver's ed. But when I think about driver's ed and everything that we had to study and know, and time behind the wheel, right? To be at least semi-responsible drivers, right? And then even comparing that knowledge to voting, the fact that you said, Jan, that, you spend as much time talking to people who are registered, people who vote, the things that we could know and don't know. And I take it even as far as, if we also had like, how to raise children, maybe not how to raise children, but how to, if we had as much training about creating children, those three things alone, can you imagine? Training for driver's ed, training to vote, and training to give birth, and the importance of that. We would be a different planet, right? If we had that much knowledge on just those three components.
And I like the idea of being licensed to vote.
Yeah. Like you got to know, like
you need to know something. You should know some things. Yes.
In some countries, you're required to vote. So I love what y'all do. One of the things that challenged me when I moved back to Texas was, so who's running for what position and what's their position? In Oregon, they put out a paper pamphlet, which was helpful. And I love that y'all actually make available on a precinct basis who's running for what and some information on them. That, even if you want to vote, sometimes it's very difficult to find out who's running and what are the issues. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah, Paul also has a question. How does the league deal with organizations or movements that try to discourage registering and voting among certain age or gender or ethnic groups? It's in the chat if you want to reread that, Alene.
I'm not sure that I've really had the opportunity to have a conversation about that. I think that when we engage with the voters, we have had, some conversations that are maybe not quite as positive, but it's usually they just don't want to talk to us. So I'm not really sure that I've had the opportunity to actually have that conversation. We just want to make sure that everybody who's eligible to vote has the information that they need, and everything that we do is toward that end. We just, we do what we can, in terms of that. But I don't know that I've really had any conversations centered around that.
Dan, have you had anything like that?
I would say that our focus, our purpose is to present our positive message, right, and to touch as many people as we can, and tell them why it's so important to vote. I don't think that engaging with people who have a different message is part of our mission. I think our positive mission is to balance that misinformation out.
I'm really appreciating, that your positiveness. I even liked Alene's, I've not had that opportunity. So I appreciate the positiveness of the message I'm hearing, as well as the nonpartisanship. Peter has his hand up.
Thank you, Anne, and thanks for the presentation, Alene. I had a question more about logistics and promoting the voting sites. I know during the pandemic, I early vote, so it's so convenient to be able to go anywhere. And I know during the pandemic, we're allowed to go to any location. And I believe we reverted back. I'm not positive. Just wanted to confirm that if that's something that you advocate for this election here. Is it day of, you have to go to your precinct site? And what are the challenges of advocating for that to be the norm, where you can go anywhere?
No, both on early voting and on the election day, you can go to any voting center.
So that has been
yes, that's in place. You do not have to go to your precinct site. You can go to the place closest to your work rather than your home. So you can vote in any of the voting centers. And I think that's why they're called voting centers now, instead of being the precinct location. So they changed that language. It's a voting center, and they are open for the election day as well.
Well, great. I did not know that, but I'm glad to hear that.
The other, I mentioned this because this has come up a couple of times. The other thing that we hear a lot, you ask people, are you ready to vote? Are you registered? And they may say, no, I can't register. Well, a lot of times it's the citizenship that prevents them from, but sometimes it's the felony conviction that they say, I can't vote because I've had a felony, and for them to admit that and to say that, I think that's wonderful that they'll actually tell me that. But if they are finished with all of their punishment for whatever happened, they are eligible to vote. And that's a change. That's new, relatively new. So if they are off paper, gone through all their parole, and they're no longer under any sort of punishment, they can register to vote. And that's often another thing that is a change that some people just don't realize.
Anne, I wanted to note that, we're focusing a lot on community outreach because that's what we do. But Jackie noted in the chat that the League of Women Voters advocates at the state legislature level to oppose anti-voting legislation. So that's the advocacy arm of the league. So that's I think an excellent response to Paul's concern.
Other comments? Let me look in chat again. Any comments or questions other than gratitude? Because I know I have gratitude for you being here.
And this is Mark. I'm wondering the whole thing about voter registration. How can we get to a point where you register one time and until you die, you don't have to do it again? It seems like that's just a unnecessary hurdle for some people.
There is a bill that's proposed right now that says if you don't vote in 2 federal elections, they can purge you. 2 consecutive federal elections, they can purge you. So that's not on the books now. I know they purge the rolls periodically, but this particular bill would make it to where they could do that if you haven't voted in 2 consecutive federal elections. And so that's one of the things, as Jan said, that our advocacy arm is watching that very closely. There are ways to, and we have opportunities to do this. There's a way to check if your voter registration is active. You can go to Bexar County website. There's a place there, or you can go to votetexas.gov and it will tell you whether or not your voter registration is active. And we have that available whenever we're doing a face-to-face thing, just to confirm that people are ready to vote. So
Good to know.
those are another good resource.
Kendra, do you have another question or comment?
I just have a comment because I was really concerned about my vote counting this time around. And I know that there was some issues with redlining and disqualifying people, and they weren't aware until they got to the polls. So I just called the election office and they were super helpful, and they let me know that I was registered. And you can vote at any polling place in Bexar County. You do not have to vote at your polling site anymore, just so y'all know that.
See, look at all this amazing basic information, right? Yeah. So thanks to Lauren Deal she's asked two years now in a row. How about the League of Women Voters?
Thank you, Lauren.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Any other comments or questions this morning? It's great to be sitting here with you. I'm listening to the rain. I don't know if everyone else has rain happening right now. I know Billy said he didn't, that it had already passed through. He's a little west of us, but anyway, it's good to be sitting here
There's
listening to
more
that
coming. It's
rain.
making noise outside my window.
Please always keep in mind, and I know Billy posted it in chat, but all of these are recorded. So, let's all think beyond ourselves. If there's some, our congregation or an organization or a friend or whatever who needs to hear any of this, we all know, especially kind of the briefing part, we kind of keep that as tight as possible in that recording. He's put that in chat, but sometimes I forget it. So I just Google Sacred intersection and the link will come up. So Sacred does host our intersection every Thursday morning. And I forgot to pause at 8:30. I felt like we were close to done, and then, we weren't. So anyway, thank you all for being with us today. Be safe. You know how we are in San Antonio. When the roads are wet, we forget how to drive. Even
Thanks
though
for having me,
driver's
Ann.
ed.
Please email me with your request for bookmarks. We have about 2,000 left.
Okay.
So.
All right. Thank you, Alene.
Have a
I
blessed
really
day,
appreciate it.
everyone.
See you all next Thursday at the intersection. Have good weekends.
Thank you, Ann.
Thank you, Jan.